Today we've got questions on piracy, Holy Roman Empire, abdications, and Charles reveals what he's learned from Putin's interview with Tucker Carlson. Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu, now being broadcast and podcast on the Crusade Channel. Talk radio the way it should be on crusadechannel.com. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a Schwarzgelb, Charles Coulomb.
Schwarzgelb, you mean as in black and gold?
Uh-huh, yes.
The colors of the House of Habsburg.
Yes.
So basically you're implying that I have some sort of loyalty, some sort of interest in, some sort of affection for the illustrious House of Habsburg. That's what you're saying.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Guilty as charged. No, it's fine. I throw myself on the mercy of the court. I do prefer the Habsburgs to a lot of cretins and morons that are running countries today. Yes.
What about the Habsburg jaw, though, and all those things, and then monarchy bad, and all the things that bad happened? And
you mean like COVID?
No, I mean...
you mean the Holocaust, the Nazis, democratically elected. Is that what you're saying? Or was it the communists?
Yeah, they acted like the kings of old.
Oh, did they now? Gay marriage? Abortion? Euthanasia? That's all Republican virtue. Remember, if the baby ain't dead, it should be.
What?
Yeah.
Wait.
Well, I mean, think about it. Abortion has been extended closer and closer to birth, and now it can be done postnatally.
Postnatal?
Postnatal abortion. In other words, murdering the baby shortly after it's born, rather than before.
I thought that was like I thought some governor from like Kentucky or something like said that, and like, so that's in some states. You got some postnatal. Is that in California?
It's a good question. Let's find out. I could imagine Governor Newsom doing it himself.
Because I thought some politician was advocating for that, and everyone was outraged. And then I thought that shut it down a couple of years back.
Well, let's see. Postnatal abortion, California.
Because now that's surprising to me, because now that more clearly demonstrates the lie that it's part of the woman's body.
Let's see. California Proposition 1. That was the new thing. This is interesting. The claim, California's Proposition 1 will change the state's constitution to allow taxpayer-funded abortions up to the moment of birth, regardless of the health of the mother. AP's assessment. Well, AP never knows jack anyway, so we can skip that. Now they're trying. You're right. They're trying to say that it's not going to happen.
Because I think that hurts. I feel like going even beyond sort of hurts the cause of abortion.
I think they should be true to themselves. I think they should be true to themselves.
That's making it.
Why should they have to hide their intentions? Why can't they just open and be accepted?
It's like that advancement is too far, and it puts them on shaky ground. You know what I mean? Like that's.
Yeah, but I think it's terrible. They can't be open and accept themselves for who they are. Why should they have to mask?
Yeah, well, that's definitely true.
Why can't they just come out and be who they are? Why should they have to feel the need to conceal what they want to do? See, if it weren't for this kind of restriction of freedom, why then America would have won the space race. We'd have gotten to the moon first, before the Soviets.
What? What?
Hmm?
What did you say?
I said, if these folks were allowed to be themselves openly, etc., we'd have gotten to the moon first instead of the Soviets.
Yeah, we didn't get to the moon first.
Didn't we?
I thought you said. Okay, I thought you said something else. Okay, I'm getting confused.
About what? About what?
Okay, you're. Okay, I think you're playing games with my mind.
Do you see how accusatory you are?
I think you're gaslighting me, Charles, because you have no respect for me.
I've got tons of respect for you. You pay my checks. I've got huge respect. And as far as gaslighting goes, you can't gaslight a Californian.
Why is that?
It's like giving oxygen to air breathers. I mean, how would they notice?
Oxygen. So what? We have a lot of gas over here in California. I don't understand. Like
The Californians are gaslit constantly by their masters. So how would my gaslighting change anything?
Well, I would think it would be an effective strategy. I mean, if we're constantly being gaslit and we're falling for it, that would be an effective communication strategy.
Well, it would if I were in government, but I'm not.
Well,
I'm not. I mean, I'm not Governor Newsom. I can't just gaslight a whole state.
Would you ever want to be mayor of any town?
Yeah, sure.
No, like for real though. Like for real, like.
Yeah. No. Well, to answer your question, I would not mind being elected mayor of the city of New York.
Well, I was thinking a small town. You're saying New York? What would you do as mayor of New York?
Well, for starters, and this would just be to begin with, I'd ride in the St. Patrick's Day parade and the Thanksgiving Day parade.
Okay.
I would live. I would tell jokes at the Al Smith dinner. I would live in Gracie Mansion. I would go to work every day at City Hall in Lower Manhattan. I would be the spirit of the city. And my theme song would be Sidewalks of New York. I would be milking New York schmaltz like nobody's business. That's what I would do. I would say, you remember, ladies and gentlemen, the old neighborhood. And I'm here to tell you, my fellow New Yorkers, that this city has had enough of crime, enough of depression, enough of poverty. New York says no.
I think you'd be wildly popular.
I think so too. I think so too. And it would be utter schmaltz, the whole thing. I mean, I Rockefeller Center, St. Patrick's Cathedral, I'd be everywhere, you know. And now, ladies and gentlemen, cheering on the contestants of the first annual rickshaw race, Battery Park to the Cloisters. His honor himself, Mayor of New York, Charles Coulombe. Give it up. And I'd be there in morning coat, top hat, and I'd say, ladies and gentlemen, this rickshaw race is a symbol of the ingenuity and the energy that has made the city of New York stand out from any city across the country. Where else but our own Big Apple, our own Gotham, could you get a ton of rickshaw riders together? Where else would such an extraordinary accomplishment come to pass but our own New York? Never forget, ladies and gentlemen, we may have hard times. Things may be difficult. But by God, we are the city of New York. See? Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great. I'm looking at, because I don't know what a rickshaw rider is. Is that what they use over in China? Something like that?
Well, they have these bicycle rickshaws in the streets of New York. These these sort of unofficial taxis.
Oh. Okay.
My brother and I ran a rickshaw race with our cousins, um, and what we would do is we'd get a whole bunch of them. You see, rather not just the two that we had. You'd have to hire the rickshaw. It's like hiring a cab, only it's a rickshaw, a guy on a bicycle, and you're in the back. They're bigger than bikes. They're kind of heavy duty, and they have a whole bunch of them racing. And that'd be something I would introduce. There'd be a lot of other stuff like that, cultural stuff. Like a pizza festival. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Cuomo was appeared to be as one of the judges in the first annual All New York City Pizza Contest.
Man, this is too idyllic for me to handle. This is we need you to get back here and run for mayor of New York. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Oh, it'd be great stuff. I mean, basically, economy, who cares? Crime, pa. Shoot to kill. Those are my orders to the NYPD. It was good for Giuliani. It's good for me. You see them tagging, pop, pop. All done.
Well, I don't know if we can go that far.
All right, well, that probably not. But what we would do is take Giuliani's lead, which is you prosecute the small crimes, and isn't it funny? The big ones drop down. This was too hard a concept for Mayor de Blasio and his current successor to get to their little pinheads. But, when it comes to what are the biggest problems facing New York? Crime, the economy, and, public spirit, really. Now, the economy, unfortunately, is there are all kinds of factors over which the mayor has no control. All he can really do is try to drum up business and try to get the city council to create an atmosphere that will lure businesses to New York, and that's what he has to do. I mean, obviously, he has no control over bigger trends. Crime, I think Giuliani showed us exactly what needs to be done. I mean, it's a perfect blueprint for New York. It worked well before, it would work again. As long as you don't have a mayor with a head made out of mushroom like de Blasio and his successors. As far as building up public spirit, New York needs schmaltz, and lots of it.
Man,
and I'm just the boy to dish it out.
That's for sure. Love to see that. I want to explore that thing you said about Giuliani a little bit, because I didn't exactly know that. We knew that. I think a lot of people know that he basically had an instrumental role in sort of putting a last nail in the coffin for the mafia back in the day. I mean, with the informants and stuff like that, and the RICO, the whole RICO process and that law. But I didn't know about sort of his efficacy at reducing crime through this. So what constitutes? So my first question is sort of what constitutes small crime? What did he decide to pursue specifically?
Oh, tagging, theft, pickpocketing, purse snatching, harassment on the subway.
So that's like prosecuting, you mean?
Well, pursuing and prosecuting. And bear in mind, he did most of his work against the mafia and all that before he became mayor.
So I didn't know. I didn't know you have to sort of go out of your way to pursue these things. I thought sort of just a natural city is going to
No,
pursue
it's not.
like these people who are doing graffiti.
It's not. They don't, as a rule. And
Huh.
and again, if you go after shoplifting, for instance, in a strong way, uh, if you go after, as I say, what people consider minor crime, very often the sources of major crime just dry up, because it's not like major criminals, just do one big deal and then the rest of the time they're skating. They're generally up to other things, and if you catch them on those other things, they're not around to do the big ones.
Okay.
And because, see, above all, for law enforcement to be effective, it has to be seen to be effective. In other words, if you're Joe Dokes in some rundown neighborhood and you're thinking of committing a crime, and nobody you know who's committed a crime has ever suffered for it, you're likelier to do it than if you know half a dozen or 12 people who've gone to Sing Sing or Rikers or somewhere, have been put away because they did it. They need would-be malefactors need to know that there is a price to be paid, and they don't mind paying it. Then their little tushes can sit in jail, but often they would rather not pay it.
Hmm.
And as I say, I think Giuliani demonstrated, and Bloomberg, who I disliked intensely, nevertheless continued the same strategy. And then after Bloomberg, you got this muttonhead, de Blasio, the Marxist. And after, thank God, unsuccessfully trying to get rid of the horse-drawn buggies in Central Park, he just let crime grow and grow and grow. And of course, it's been the same under the nitwit who's the current mayor.
What's his name?
Moron, I think, or stupid or something. No, let's see. It may even be a she. I'm not sure. Let me see. New York City mayor.
Eric Adams since 2022.
Yeah. Yeah. Another de Blasio's successor.
Okay. Huh. Well, that was really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. On that note, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to San Francisco. Honestly, speaking of,
Well, San Francisco. No, mind you, I'd enjoy being mayor of San Francisco too. But unfortunately, the mayor of San Francisco. I mean, you talk about if you think De Blasio was a piece of garbage. They've had one after another in San Francisco. It's very sad.
no, I mean, but like, probably people outside of California don't know this, but like, the crime issue and the lack of law enforcement is so pronounced in San Francisco that it's actually impacting house prices there. Like they're starting to drop. Like it's substantial now. So, and that just kind of started past few years. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is very, very sad. Well, but
It's that's why we were talking about something even before the pre-show. We were talking about potential job opportunity as a gene pool lifeguard.
yeah, this I think is an extremely important thing. I mean, you have so many morons running around in elected office and elsewhere. Uh, we need a lifeguard at the gene pool. I think one of the things that might help is if a person is elected mayor of a major city, they're not allowed to have children.
That probably would be good.
Well, I mean, you look at the Prime Minister of Canada, you look at the President of the United States. Would you really want those people reproducing?
Well, usually they're too old though, like right? Like because
Yeah, but Justine is like 12 or something.
Okay. Well, I guess in that instance, it'd be effective. Okay.
Now it's true that Biden is too old to reproduce, but perhaps his son Hunter, could be forbidden from reproduction as well. It could
No.
be made hereditary. It's hereditary in my family to have no children. For generations we've been barren. Not a one born to us all these years.
Well, then how is that?
What? Are you okay? Oh, the shame of it. We're all barren. Generation after generation has failed to produce a single child.
I don't think that makes any sense.
What are you talking about? Of course, it makes perfect sense. It's what you call an Irish bull. It's an old one, too. It's hereditary in my family to have no children. Not a one.
Sad.
We haven't had a one born since the whiskey famine of 1847. When the whiskey ran dry, so did we. Well, it's no worse than 6 or 7 generations living in one apartment.
That's impressive.
No, but seriously, all kidding aside, there are several cities I wouldn't mind trying to put back together. New York would be my favorite choice, but New Orleans, San Francisco, Boston, these are all cities that I love. I absolutely love. And, if life had been different, if I were a native of any one of them, and somehow I had political pull, I mean, I was born in New York, but having been gone there most of my life, I hardly count as a native anymore. Certainly not in political terms. But I mean, each of them has such rich traditions to draw on. It's a crime that their mayors should be so stupid.
All right. Two other cities I thought I'd mention just out of curiosity. I hear such good things about Toronto and Quebec.
Well, they're great. Quebec City is a great city, and Toronto's a great city. But their mayors, I couldn't tell you much about.
Okay. No, but I meant like, have they sort of degraded and fallen off compared to on a municipal basis?
Yeah, of course. Municipal government as a whole, wherever you look, has fallen off. Again, the great stupefaction that seems to have turned our ruling classes into a band of squirrel monkeys. It's not just at the national level. The stupidity is not reserved for the highest in each nation. It filters down.
Well, I mean, can you, in a nutshell, give us a before and after of how things were good, and then comparably how things are bad across the board? I mean, because a lot of times you talk about how perhaps priorities change in a weird, stupid way. Like, did that happen?
Well, I mean, it's like the history of the United States and the history of the world over the past 50 years. I mean, basically, well, to take most of our northeastern cities, say during the Depression, they had these corrupt city machines that ran them, but they delivered the services they promised for the taxes paid. So, in other words, the mayor's cronies might all be getting rich, but the streets were clean, the streets were safe, and the potholes were filled. In time, we began to get good government crusades, some of which really were what they meant to be. But the end of the old party machines in the northeastern cities eventually ushered in a bunch of incompetence.
Why?
Well, I think there's several reasons.
wouldn't the machine just like beat the
I
incompetence?
think
Like how could a incompetence beat a machine?
I think there's several reasons. Well, it was because they were beaten by other machines, and those other machines generally took advantage of the burgeoning civil rights movement, etc., to recruit newly enfranchised or re-enfranchised minorities to unseat the old machines. But they didn't really give much back in return. So, for instance, we got a black man in City Hall now. Okay, so what's he going to do about the level of crime in black neighborhoods? Oh, that's right, not much. Um, but it wasn't just blacks. I mean, it was liberal whites. It was morons of every color and creed. Um, I think part of it is that the emphasis in the past 50 years is definitely, or longer, has been on national politics. So you tend less. It used to be that a lot of very talented people at the state, city, county, local level would get to a certain point and be very happy to stay there. I'm happy as a state senator in California. I love my constituents, and this is where I'm going to stay until I die. I have no, I have absolutely no ambition for national office. And the same was true for local leaders. I'm the mayor of the great city of what's it. Uh, I'm a local big deal because the city's big. The governor has to come to me at election time, and every 4 years, depending on the size of my city, maybe even the president of the United States if he wants to carry my state. Um, but beyond using that status to wangle stuff for my city, you want my support. Well, we're going to have some defense plants here in River City. And if you're not willing to get us a few defense plants, that's fine. And you're also not getting my support when the next election comes around. And because of the nature of the thing, the Electoral College and all that, even presidents needed the support of as many state and local bosses as possible. Now it's kind of a different kettle of fish. Um, and we saw this during COVID, during the hot summer of burning love. You had all of these idiots talking about defunding the police. I'm talking about idiots in power now, encouraging rioting and destruction of various things in the cities. These people have no love for their cities, you see. I guess that's a big difference between the old machines and the current. Whatever else they were, I mean, a man like James Michael Curley of Boston or Jimmy Walker in New York, Bo James, or Frank Hague in Jersey City, whatever else you said about these guys, they loved their city in a way that most modern politicos really do not. Um, I don't think, yeah, one of the reasons why somebody, even Jimmy Walker, who's kind of a wild man, would go all over the city and visit everything, even outside of election periods, is because he wanted to get to know his city better. He wanted to be more of a part of the city, the life of the city. And I think that's perfectly grand. If I'm mayor of Los Angeles, same. Los Angeles, in terms of cultural diversity, in terms of historical, especially Spanish and Old Hollywood, in terms of historical riches, natural stuff, it's a wonderful place, really. And the mayor of Los Angeles would be well advised to explore it during his administration as early as he could, not least to popularize its various treasures. But I remember one LA city councilman I remember who was very much like that was the late lamented Tom LaBanche, who represented Hollywood and Points East. Boy, did he love his constituents. They always make fun of the city councilman or the county supervisor, or whatever, glad handing everybody. Well, I'd rather have them glad handing than sitting in their offices all day ignoring the people that they're supposed to be representing.
It's true. All right.
But this gene pool is entirely too shallow.
Indeed.
In fact, it's kind of muddy.
Gross.
You don't want a muddy gene pool. What do you mean gross?
I don't want to swim muddy. I don't want to swim in muddy water.
Yeah, but what about being spawned by it? Isn't that okay?
Being spawned by muddy water?
Yeah, created by it.
What am I, an orc? All right.
Well, look, I just saw an X-File. You remember the X-Files?
Yeah, of course I remember the X-Files.
Well, I just saw the first episode from season 2.
Okay.
It was about a human leech hybrid.
It sounds disturbing.
It was very disturbing. The hybrid's name was Bobby.
Okay. All right, moving on.
You didn't want to get back down to that, did you?
No, I didn't.
All right. Is the truth out there?
Yes.
Way out there.
It's way out there, yeah. All right. Time for something serious. We've got a request from a patron who says, "Long-time lurker, first-time writing. I would like to ask for a prayer for my daughter who apostatized from the church for about a year now." So we can give her a couple prayers.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Saint Monica.
Pray for us.
In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. For those who don't know, that was the mother of St. Augustine, who prayed for his conversion for many, many years and finally got it.
All right. So let's get into the program. So first, before the questions,
The program. Do we have to work the program?
Work the program? I don't know what that
Yeah.
means.
Well, I mean, it means like if you're sober for a month, they give you a little.
No, not
thing.
that kind of program, Charles.
Not that kind of program.
No.
Oh, I see. No, don't help me. I can do this. A nuclear program.
No, Charles. Just a normal, good old-fashioned podcast program. We're on a schedule, Charles. We're trying to keep it. All right.
What about creativity? What about the free flow? We haven't even mentioned that this is Lent.
It's not Lent.
No, it's not. Actually, when everybody sees this, it'll be Lundingra.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you have one more day to party, kids, and then Ash Wednesday, and it all comes to a crashing halt.
That's right. Early Lent this year, really early Lent.
You know what early Lent means?
What does early Lent mean?
Early Easter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what is it, March 31st or something like that? Yeah, that's That's wild.
So by the time April rolls around, the whole story is over.
Yeah, that's weird.
It is. You'll have 2 months before summer vacation.
That's right.
Are you guys going to the Bahamas this year? Again?
Yeah, there's a bunch of seminars, doing some research, some fact-finding.
Yeah, the fact-finding tour to Arcadia's sister city of St. John's in the Bahamas.
Or sister city.
Yes, you're being dispatched by the mayor and city council with eight other ranking businessmen of the city of Arcadia. Mayor Thompson says it had nothing to do with the fact that each of those being said were major contributors to his campaign.
All right.
There's no connection, he says. But they wanted a representative group of typical Arcadia businessmen who would understand what St. John's of the Bahamas is going through.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough.
All right. All right. Let's.
Tiki?
Okay. So last week, a lot of patrons actually were talking about this. They were, I think they tuned in and watched the Tucker Carlson interviewing Putin, and there's a, in the beginning of the interview, Putin really went into a lot of history of Russia, and I think a lot of people would be interested in your take on what you got from Putin. Maybe some fact checking. Did he say any lies? What's your take? Just give us your reaction to it, Charles.
Well, he knows a lot more history than the average Western leader, but that doesn't tell you much. Because the average Western leader today doesn't know much of anything, and that's even when they're not senile. We don't choose them on the basis of having brains. And so, in that respect, he comes across looking a lot smarter and quicker. He comes across looking a lot smarter and quicker than our people. But again, that's not very hard to do. It doesn't mean he's a brainiac. It just means we're ruled by morons. But we knew that. It's no shock. What I found most interesting is something that I don't think too many people have commented on. And I think it's extremely important. And that is the place of religion in his thinking. Tucker Carlson asked him when he was talking about what's going on and all that. He said, "Do you see the hand of God in all of this? Do you see the influence of the supernatural in world affairs?" He said, "No." Now, that's a very, very key statement because, a lot of people like to think of him as some sort of Christian paladin, etc., because of his support of the Orthodox Church and everything else. But the fact is that whether you're Catholic or Orthodox or Anglican or Lutheran or Presbyterian or any kind of self-described Christian, except maybe Unitarian, you have to believe that God plays a role in world affairs. You have to believe that there's the hand of God in everyday life, to which you are answerable. Because, see, that's the other half. It's not just that God has an influence in day-to-day affairs. Because he does, I have an obligation to him as a leader. Even my obligation to my people flows from my obligation to him. I think, I've said this many times, and I'm not saying it to be funny. I believe it's very important that our masters believe they will go to hell if they rule us badly. He obviously doesn't believe that. Now, mind you, neither does anybody else in power in the West, except maybe Viktor Orban. But that's part of the problem in the modern world. These creatures that control us think they're gods. Well, not gods, but nature's gift to mankind. And what did Putin say? He said, "No, I don't believe that. I believe that they're historical forces and so on and so forth, but not divine, not divine." Which means that he is still the Marxist materialist that he was trained to be. Now, mind you, he may have some sort of attachment to Orthodox ritual, and that may be sincere. I don't know. It could be sort of a Kennedy Eastern Orthodox, where you like to go through, or a Trudeau Eastern Orthodox, where you go through the rituals and all that, but it doesn't. You don't let it affect anything you would do in the real world, and that is basically what he confessed to being. Now, obviously, his historical analysis was what it was in the Russian viewpoint, and I would say it's something that does have to be considered. But there were other things that were a little bit crazy. I mean, Poland, it's funny. People are shocked when they learn something that they didn't know, as though someone was were keeping it from them. Anyone who's studied the Munich Agreement knows that Poland came in in 1938. They got in on the Munich Agreement so they could get a hold of a little district called Teschen, and Putin refers to this. Well, I don't remember his mentioning is that Teschen was ethnically Polish, and the Czechs and the Poles had literally fought over it in 1918 until the Allies drew the border and Teschen stayed on the Czech side. Now, mind you, that doesn't justify the Poles going after it in 1938, but my point is that this didn't pop out of nowhere. And the implication that somehow the Poles caused World War II, what, they simultaneously attacked Germany and the Soviet Union? Is that what happened? I guess that must be why the Soviets had to invade. Makes sense. And that, by the way, also brings us to for me, a very disturbing thing that's emerged over the past couple of years of the war. And that is the reemergence, apparently, with Putin's permission of Lenin statues and the old Soviet red flag and all that. I mean, communism was at least as damaging to Russia as it was to any other country it's gone into. And the idea of re-embracing that stuff for the purpose of building up morale, it's horrific. It's utterly horrific. Especially if you're going to be accusing the Ukrainians of being Nazis. Waving the hammer and sickle at the swastika is not a good thing. So, I mean, I came away from the interview reassured that Putin is smarter than most of our Western people, which again doesn't mean much. But whatever hope I had 10 years ago that he might be something really different for Russia and thus the world, that's already shot to pieces. But this was the nail in the coffin. What he had to say about religion, well, okay, fine. So you don't believe in a God that affects mankind. Okay, great. So how are you different from Biden except that you're not senile?
Yeah.
You're not, you're anti-gay proselytization. Okay, that's nice. So what?
Yeah, no, I mean, just watching the interview, my reaction was, my emotional reaction from it was quite positive, but I realized that it's because Putin was embodying all these qualities, which are all these all these qualities that are not found in the people we've been suffering from,
See,
right?
this
It's
is
an
the
emotion.
problem.
It's a trap, right? Because it's like you look at all these liberals and they're so ahistorical. I feel like in order to be a liberal, you have to be ahistorical. And
Well, you do. You got to be almost anti-historical.
right. And so
that's what wokery is about. Because remember, history was the product of dead white European men.
right.
It is evil.
So it's easy to sort of have that emotional reaction and ride that and say, "Oh, this is someone who's embracing history, who's smart, so he's a good guy, right?" You know what I mean?
Well,
We've got to watch out for that.
Well, and oddly enough, that in itself is kind of a liberal myth. The idea that education inevitably means virtue.
Right.
But the problem is that we're basically dealing with two different kinds of evil. I mean, Putin represents a certain kind of well-educated, effective materialism. Our leadership represents a kind of moronic, ahistorical, anti-historical stupidity. So, we're down to the stupid party and the evil party again, only as world affairs. And, it's once you look at it in those terms, it's very difficult to get excited in favor of either one. The problem, of course, is that his troops really are in Ukraine, and what's to be done about it? I mean, obviously, our masters will happily fight to the last Ukrainian. Uh, Russia, I honestly think that if there's to be peace, it's going to have to be gotten across that neither side is going to get everything they want.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't this just various thoughts that float in my brain, but I always wonder if God's mercy shows up in different unusual ways that you might not think. You had said before where talking about some of this leadership, which is really dumb and really bad, but it's sort of, we're lucky that they're so dumb because they're not effective. It'd be dangerous if they're smart and then they're actually executing really well their plan.
Yeah.
So you wonder if that's sort of this mercy here, where it's like, well, they're in charge, but at least they're dumb. And so too, there's this other thought I had where there's just so many people just having pets instead of kids, just having dogs. It's just, especially in California, like whatever you're experiencing in like other parts of the U.S., I feel like California is like exponentially like it's more so. And so, but you wonder if that's sort of a mercy thing where it's like, well, who would these kids be if you're not going to raise them in the faith? You're just not going to do anything. It's like, okay, well, no kids, right?
That's true. Although I can imagine how you would discourage such a couple.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, when they call the dog or the cat their kid in front of their child.
Well, I mean, they even have the stroller with the dog.
Oh, yeah, I know. And when they do that, all you do is you ask, who does he favor, his mother or father?
Oh man, I mean, just
Who
a
does he
dog
look
mom.
like? Who does he look like? You or your husband?
Oh, okay. No, I can't say that.
Now
at
you
work.
understand.
Okay.
So who does he take after?
Yeah, it's just.
The sad thing is when the proud boss says, "Oh, he looks just like my mother."
Oh.
She won the Vacaville dog show 5 times, 5 years in a row.
Yeah. So.
I think you're a speciesist.
Sure. But yeah. So there's been so much of God's mercy. We've been so far along on so many of these prophecy timelines too. You wonder when we're really going to get cooking.
Well, it's hard to say.
I mean, don't be preoccupied with it, but it's just one of those thoughts. You're doing the La Salette and then all these other ones in your, in your mind. It's like, okay, that's all those prophecies are a long time ago.
Well, you see, don't forget a lot of terrible things have happened. World War I, World War II.
Right.
We have been relatively spared, at least where we are in America and Western Europe. We have been spared a lot of garbage.
Right.
But you look at all the bloodshed, even what's going on in Ukraine now. It's a horror. I think it was Nicolas Davila who said the modern world will not be punished. The modern world is the punishment.
Wow. I guess so. That's true. That is true. But yeah, I don't know. You're probably right about some of these because World War I, World War II. I was really into looking at the some of the mysticism of the Sacred Heart devotion with I can't even remember her name. Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, and I
Yeah.
feel like there's some reference there to some of these great wars that have really been giant earthquakes for the world.
Well, I mean, the French Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, the revolutions of 1848. This stuff was all terrible, terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
The Spanish-American wars of independence were not pleasant.
Yeah.
Although you're not supposed to notice that.
All right. All right. Moving on. Let's do some questions. We got
Okay.
a question from Cream Man, who says, "Given the nature of Tumblr House and Charles being an author, I have a question. What is your opinion on digital piracy? My principle is that piracy seems to be acceptable, but when I find something that is worthwhile, I make every effort to pay for it in some way, often pirating books before buying a copy. There are some specific points that I struggle with. Firstly, does a poor person have a moral obligation to pay the same amount for a product as a rich person? And number two, is piracy wrong when the alternative is simply not having access to the content? I would have not been able to read most books I have read without digital piracy. The alternative was not for me to pay, but instead to be entirely deprived of worthwhile books during my adolescence."
Well, firstly, I hate to sound very pre-industrial, but in my day, in my adolescence, I spent a lot of time in an institution called a library.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about those.
Yeah, well, they still have them in most communities. And I came from a very poor family. We didn't have a great deal of money. We was po. Uh, but the library was my staff of life. And thanks to the magic of interlibrary loan, there was very little I couldn't read if I put my mind to it and I studied it. So, besides which, everything that's in the public domain is freely available online. If it's not in the public domain, go to the library.
Hmm.
And now call the library first and say, do you have such and such? And if they don't, then ask them to order it for you, and they will. They're very good about that. Plus, going to the library will do several other things. First, it'll get you out from behind the computer screen, which is always a good thing, and bring you into interaction with people, which is even better. Beyond that, libraries, not always, but often, can be very beautiful places. In some communities next to the church, the library is the prettiest thing there is, especially in older parts of the country. And very often, your library has a local history room. You know how I'm always preaching about the importance of knowing your local area so you can have local loyalty and all that kind of stuff. The library is usually a tremendous place to start in terms of resources about your locale. You cannot believe the treasures that are lurking in the library. And not just that. Online, you zero in on one book. You go browsing in the library, you'll run across all sorts of things you never knew about. So I really would say, rather than getting bogged down in the morality of pirating, because, you know, if you're starving, you have a right to steal food. But it's really got to be that bad. You can't just be an inconvenience to allow you to commit theft. So, as to why should you have to pay the same amount as rich people? Well, because whether a rich person or a poor person buys the thing, it still requires the same amount of effort on the man who produced it. That doesn't go away. Um, I speak as a writer myself. Lord knows I'm a very poor man. I don't make a lot of money off it, although it's my sole income. Uh, but I need every penny I can make because I'm a poor man. I only get like every other writer, I only get a small percentage of what's behind that paywall you referred to. So let me suggest first you check and see if something you want to see is in the public domain and thus available. If it's not, consult your local library about getting it so you can read it free of charge. And you can Xerox to your heart's content so you can keep it with you forever.
All right. He has a subsequent question where he says, "Can ideas belong to someone? While the labor involved in creating a product requires payment, it seems unjust that decades after the creation of a book, sometimes after the author is long dead, it is still behind a paywall. Given the nature of digital content and how much of it disappears, piracy is often the only real reason why a book, TV show, movie, or video game is even able to be experienced. And therefore, how can it be morally preferable that something cease to exist than that it be illegally distributed?"
Well, that's a very interesting point. Uh, and it's one could doubtless go back and forth on, back and forth on, back and forth on. But that, I think, is also a relatively rare case. I mean, finding what they call title search, finding who is responsible for what publication. It's a lot of work, and very often, as you say, well, not very often, but sometimes the author died early, has no interest, has no family, etc. Um, in other cases, such as the one you propose, that would take a longer analysis and a longer trying to figure out that I'm capable of doing here and now.
Hmm. Um, this kind of runs into an interesting tangent. I was reading a lot of Daria Faustina lately, and one of the it was actually my third time I've read it. But one of the things that really stands out is the importance in religious life of obedience, the concept of obedience, and how, I mean, just instrumental and vital it is to, I mean, it's the backbone of religious life. And I was trying to apply a lot of sort of the virtue that she was exhibiting, but I wanted to know how obedience is factors into like lay folks' life. And I was wondering like obedience for a law, um, like perhaps just a negligible law, but a law nevertheless.
Yeah.
Um, like is that pleasing to God in the same way, or like how does it work? You know what I mean? Is obedience a
Well,
thing for lay people or not really? Um,
well, no. I mean, remember Our Lady of Fatima. One of the ways you do what you need to do to fulfill her requirements is to fulfill the duties of your state in life. And those duties very often include obedience. Obedience to your boss, obedience to your spouse, obedience to your parents, obedience to your government, obedience to your king. Those are religious duties. Um, in the immortal words of Bob Dylan, that great theologian, you got to serve somebody. Now, it might be the devil or it might be the Lord, but you got to serve somebody.
right. So yeah, so I guess I was what I was trying to navigate to for Cream Man here is that you might not get to enjoy, the certain thing, but you're pleasing God by being obedient to the law in this manner. Is that fair
And
to say?
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
And again, if it's, use the library for heaven's sake, not simply because you'll get what you want, but you really enjoy the experience. And it will, as I say, one of the things about looking at a library shelf as opposed to looking stuff up on the computer is that you often encounter things you didn't know about that are closely allied. You find a book you want, The History of Arcadian Crime by Chief Clancy. Right next to it, Why There Is No Crime in Monrovia by Bobby Little, whoever that is. Well, you've got a connected volume that nevertheless takes you in a whole different area.
Yeah.
But you never would have known the name of the author. You would never have known the title of the author.
Yeah. I think I have more means than Cream Man, but so I get the same sort of excitement from a library as I get from a bookstore, where there's so many possibilities. There's just endless. It's like you're in front of a buffet, and it's like what am I gonna really sink my teeth into, you know?
And I'll tell you something. Not to quote Ray Bradbury, but I'm going to quote Ray Bradbury.
Okay.
He was a great believer because, like myself, this is what he said. Quote: I'm completely library educated. I've never been to college. I went down to the library when I was in grade school in Waukegan and in high school in Los Angeles, and spent long days every summer in the library. Don't know what that is. Go away. I used to steal magazines from a store on Genesee Street in Waukegan and read them, and then steal them back on the racks again. That way I took the print off with my eyeballs and stayed honest. I didn't want to be a permanent thief, and I was very careful to wash my hands before I read them. But with the library, it's like catnip, I suppose. You begin to run in circles because there's so much to look at and read. And it's far more fun than going to school, simply because you make up your own list, you're not listening to anyone. When would I see some of the books my kids were forced to bring home and read by some of their teachers and were graded on? Well, what if you don't like those books? And then he says, I'm a librarian. I discovered me in the library. I went to find me in the library. Before I fell in love with libraries, I was just a 6-year-old boy. The library fueled all of my curiosities from dinosaurs to ancient Egypt. When I graduated from high school in 1938, I began going to the library 3 nights a week. I did this every week for almost 10 years, and finally in 1947, around the time I got married, I figured I was done. So I graduated from the library when I was 27. I discovered that the library is the real school. And he made the comment that the money that goes into public schools and universities, etc., should be put into libraries instead. And I agree.
There's some awesome libraries in Southern California. I've actually been to a lot of them. I mean, some even like Thousand Oaks has an incredible aquarium, a saltwater aquarium, if you can believe that. Like a big one, like a couple hundred gallons.
The Central Library in downtown Los Angeles is just extraordinary as far as art and architecture goes.
Yeah.
And the libraries at USC and UCLA, which you can use without being students there. I mean, you can't check anything out unless you apply and get a card and so forth. But a lot of great libraries around.
Yeah.
And moreover, in order to compete with your own computer sitting at home, they almost all offer computer usage as well.
All right. Xenix says, "Ahoy to the dominating Dawn and the Lord of LARP. I don't send in questions every week, but I hope they're good fun to discuss. Quality over quantity, I say, like French and Croatian cuisine." Whoa. Or maybe they're both. He's saying they're both quality.
They're both great
Yeah.
in their different ways.
Speaking of the land that now spans over gallant Gaul and noble Neustria, I have a question for Charles. Would he please reveal all about the development of kingdoms between the immediate wake of the fall of the empire in the west and its restoration under Charlemagne, such as Burgundy? The mixing of Roman institutions with those of christened warrior tribes seems to color the era. God bless.
Well, yes. The Franks started out as a relatively small tribe in what's now Belgium, and they sort of slid across the frontier. Tournai was their capital then. In the meantime, the Visigoths, after sacking Rome, went to Spain. And after taking over Spain, and they were Aryans, by the way, the Visigoths, they took over uh, France as far north as uh, the as far as the Loire, and so a good third or more of what's today France, and that was the Visigothic kingdom. The Burgundians took over another tribe, took over a big chunk of eastern France, but the Roman Empire held out in northern Gaul under a man named Syagrius. Well, a Frankish king named named uh, Clovis, that's it, was married to a Catholic Burgundian princess, Saint Clotilde, and he was baptized and crowned king in the year of our Lord 488. He conquered Syagrius's territory and then defeated the Visigoths at the Battle of Tolbiac and pushed them back over the Pyrenees. And so he established his dynasty, the Merovingians, and the Frankish kingdom, as covering most of what's now Gaul and parts of Spain, in Italy, Germany, and so on. But over the next several centuries, the general ability level of the Merovingians fell, and if that weren't bad enough, they had very peculiar uh, inheritance uh, customs. Uh, the area that they had originally come from was called Austrasia. The territory that had been conquered uh, from Syagrius was called Neustria, and then south of the Loire down to the Spanish border was Aquitaine. Uh, these were let out and to some degree subdivided by various Frankish nobility. As time went on, the Merovingians did less and less, and their second in command, the mayor of the palace, did more and more. Finally, in 711, the Moors, having conquered Spain, poured over the Pyrenees, but they were defeated at the Battle of Tours by Charmartel. Well, now he was the effective ruler of the country, but he didn't push and he was content to serve under a Merovingian king who did nothing. His son, however, Pepin the Short, is a little bit different. He established a close relationship with the Holy See. He defeated the Lombards on several occasions for them, and as a result, introduced various things from Italy to the Gaulish court. And his son was, of course, and then he deposed with papal approval. He deposed the last Merovingian, Childeric III, uh, and replaced him as king of the Franks. Uh, he then died and left two sons, Carloman and Charlemagne. Charlemagne, Atlantis' brother, became the king of the Franks, moved into Italy, became king of the Lombards, and finally the whole thing was culminated in 800 by his being crowned as Holy Roman Emperor. So that's what you got.
Alrighty. That's gonna be it. That was the last question for the episode, Charles. How do you feel about that?
I feel disappointed. I feel let down. I've I've been uh, I've been cheated, been mistreated. When will I be loved?
I don't know that one. You know what that remind?
I've been cheated, been mistreated. When will I be loved?
Thinking of songs and music, you know who did a special performance at the Grammys?
Whom?
I think it was at the very end. I tried not to watch much at all, but they had Billy Joel.
Oh.
And I guess some producer or whatever, wrangled him in and convinced him that, this would be good for him to do some music, and he, had a sort of a nostalgic, cathartic new song that he performed. I thought that was really cool. What?
He didn't do any of the old stuff.
No, it was just a single. It was just a single song. A single song, trying to get back into things. I'm sorry, you didn't do Piano Man or anything like that, but
It scenes from an Italian restaurant.
Not scenes from an Italian restaurant, but it was just good to see him.
Song.
It was just good to see him alive and kicking and doing some things.
Well, it is. It is. He sang a song that a friend of mine dedicated to me many, many years ago. Vienna Waits for You.
Right. Of course.
And it did, and here I am. But Mama Leone left a note on the door.
What is it that you're moving out? Wait, I don't know the rest of this one.
Well, let's see. We can do this.
If that's moving up, then you're moving out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that the song? Did I get the song right at least?
That's the song. That's the song. Let me see. It's Anthony's song. Now, Mama Leone's was a pizza restaurant, but
Mama Leone.
Here we go. Yeah, moving out. Anthony's song. Let me see. Here we go. Anthony works in the grocery store, saving his pennies for someday. Mama Leone left a note on the door. She said, "Sonny, move out to the country. Working too hard can give you a heart attack. You ought to know by now. Who needs a house out in Hackensack? Is that what you get for your money? It seems such a waste of time. If that's what it's all about, Mama, if that's moving up, then I'm moving out." Sergeant O'Leary is walking the beat. At night, he becomes a bartender. He works at Mr. Cacciatore's down on Sullivan Street, across from the medical center. He's trading in his Chevy for a Cadillac. You ought to know by now. And if he can't drive with a broken back, at least he can polish the fenders. It seems such a waste of time. If that's what it's all about, Mama, if that's moving up, then I'm moving out. You never should argue with a crazy mind. My. You ought to know by now. You could pay Uncle Sam with the overtime. Is that all you get for your money? If that's what you have in mind, if that's what you're all about, good luck moving up, because I'm moving out.
Beautiful.
Well, I think, again, as mayor of New York, I want to dedicate this plaque at Mr. Cacciatore's here on Sullivan Street. What?
Man, that you being mayor of New York, that's just in my head now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that out. It's just one of those images where you picture just all these scenarios where you're presiding in a grand manner over these various events, and you're all decked out with your finest garb. And
I would make up with form when I lack in substance. And that would be...
That's how we like it.
Yeah, that's how everybody likes it, And every time I appeared, the band would strike up East Side, West Side, sidewalks of New York. East Side, West Side, all around the town. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be back here in Murray Hill. And I can tell you, as your mayor, that there's no place on this entire island, no place in the 5 boroughs that I prefer to seeing on a Wednesday than Murray Hill. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me here for this wonderful neighborhood block party.
Oh man.
I'm telling you.
That it actually coincides with great skill, like your skill too, which is like throw great parties. Like this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna throw great events, and everyone's gonna have a fun time, and everyone's gonna love me. I'm not gonna do anything other than that, but it's gonna be a
No.
fun time.
Well, you see, the thing is, too, in New York, they throw all kinds of neighborhood festivals and block parties and things like that.
Oh,
So the trick is to show up.
oh,
You know, I'm really happy to be here for the St. George's Ukrainian Festival here in the village. I really I love the pierogies. I love everything about it. I treasure what?
it's so you. It's just so you. Just like your job is to go to all the parties and enjoy all the culture of New York from everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks very much for having me here in Bedford Stuyvesant. As everyone knows, is the night of Peter Claver. I've got a great love of soul food, and I am looking forward to Big Mama's gumbo here.
Somebody who's politically connected, get this man a shot at New York City, please. This is unbelievable.
No, I'm telling you, if New York is crazy enough to elect me as mayor, I promise to make up in entertainment value what I may lack in terms of any real value.
Okay, well, I'm sold.
You don't even live in New York, but you get all the cousins back in Flushing to vote for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll put the word out. I'll pull some strings. I still got connections. I mean, we're family moved out over here, but it's yeah.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, when I look at the 5 boroughs of this great city of ours, I don't see urban blight. I don't see fatigue. I don't see what other people see. What I see is a city that still has the gift of life, that still has the flame of youth in it. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, from the Bronx to Jones Beach and from Staten Island to Nassau, the city of New York has what it takes to move boldly into the rest of the 21st century and beyond. Boosterism. Oh, and let me tell you something. The Easter parade down Fifth Avenue, I'm there. Mass in St. Patrick's Cathedral, and then there's the mayor with everybody else.
Okay. We have to stop there because it's too. It's so much. It's so much to imagine.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, it would be a wonderful occasion. You see, I believe that every New Yorker has a right to enjoy the cultural and historical and natural beauty of his city. And I think it is time that New York stopped being apologetic for itself and began showing the world what we're really made out of. I haven't really said anything there, but it sounds good.
I think if you effectively become mayor of New York City, I think all the people, all the fans in New Jersey should feel obligated to move into New York City.
Well, 3/4 of them come from there originally anyway. And then I'd say to all of our expatriates, as close as Jersey or Connecticut or upstate, as far away as Florida or California, come home. The old neighborhood is waiting.
Oh man, that's your slogan right there. That's it. That's money in the bank. It's just oh wow. There it is.
Come home, America. Come home to New York.
Oh wow. Whew.
And remember, if you can't afford to live here, you can at least spend a weekend.
Wow. All right, we're going to wrap it up. So remember, if it's Monday,
It's off the menu.
and the soul you save
May be your own.
See you next time, everyone.
East side, west side, all around the town. Take care, guys.